You think you understand war because you have seen explosions and victories, but these films show something far more disturbing. They strip away the illusion and reveal what war really does to the human mind and body. From silent suffering to unbearable choices, this countdown exposes truths most movies avoid. Stay with me, because what you are about to see does not entertain. It lingers. Number 15, The Dam Busters, 1955. This is not a film about glory. It is a film about calculation. Every frame moves with quiet precision. Engineers measure, pilots rehearse. Men speak in clipped tones because emotion would break the rhythm. What makes this film unsettling for modern audiences is not violence. It is restraint. The mission is real, the stakes are real, and the outcome depends on mathematics more than courage. There is no dramatic music swelling to celebrate heroism. Instead, there is tension built through silence. The famous bouncing bomb is not treated like a spectacle. It is treated like a fragile idea that could fail at any second. When the planes finally take off, the film refuses to exaggerate. The danger feels procedural, cold, almost clinical. That is what makes it powerful. And then comes the cost, not glorified, not stretched for emotion, just presented as fact. Men do not return. Missions succeed, but lives vanish. The film leaves you with a quiet realization. War is not chaos alone. It is careful planning, followed by irreversible loss. That honesty still feels uncomfortable today. Number 14, In Which We Serve, 1942. In Which We Serve does not rush. It sinks slowly into reality. A ship is destroyed, and the survivors float in open water. That is the story. No escape, no dramatic rescue waiting just beyond the horizon. Only memory and survival. The film moves between past and present, showing the lives of men before the war and the brutal simplicity of what remains after. What makes it hard to watch now is its emotional honesty. These are not larger-than-life heroes. They are ordinary sailors who remember families and routines while drifting between life and death. The conversations are simple, almost too simple. That simplicity makes everything feel real. There is no attempt to manipulate the audience with spectacle. The sea itself becomes the enemy, cold, endless, indifferent. When rescue finally arrives, it does not feel like triumph. It feels like relief mixed with grief. Some made it, others did not. As if the film leaves a quiet ache rather than excitement. It reminds modern viewers that war is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent, sometimes it is waiting, and sometimes survival is the only victory anyone gets. Number 13, Ice Cold, in Alex, 1958. Ice Cold in Alex traps you in the desert and refuses to let you breathe. There are no grand battles, no massive explosions. Just a small group of soldiers trying to cross an unforgiving landscape. Heat becomes the enemy. Water becomes hope. Every mile feels like a punishment. What makes it deeply unsettling is how quickly strength fades. These are trained soldiers, yet exhaustion strips them down to something fragile. Tempers rise, decisions become uncertain, trust begins to fracture. The film slowly reveals that survival is not just physical, it is psychological. And the pacing is deliberate, almost oppressive. Long stretches of silence force you to sit inside the character's discomfort. Every drop of water matters. Every mistake feels irreversible. By the time they reach their destination, the audience is as drained as the characters. And then comes the ending, a moment that should feel like relief, but instead feels earned through suffering. The famous drink is not a celebration. It is a symbol of everything they endured. Modern audiences struggle with this kind of realism because it does not entertain. It exhausts. Number 12, The Hill, 1965. This is not a war film in the way most people expect. There are no enemy lines and no battlefield victories. Instead, the film locks you inside a British military prison camp in North Africa, where discipline becomes something far more dangerous than combat. The soldiers are not fighting the enemy. They are fighting exhaustion, humiliation, and a system that refuses to see them as human. The infamous punishment is simple: climb the hill, again and again under a merciless sun. The camera does not rush. It forces you to feel every step, every breath, every drop of sweat. The officers believe they are maintaining order, but what unfolds is something closer to psychological destruction. Authority becomes a weapon. routine becomes cruelty. What makes this film unbearable for modern audiences is how believable it feels. There is no exaggerated villain, only men following orders and slowly losing their sense of morality. The performances are raw and stripped of glamour. Faces collapse under pressure, voices crack. The desert becomes a silent witness to suffering that feels completely avoidable. By the end, there is no catharsis, no triumphant resolution, only the realization that war does not always break men in battle. Sometimes it breaks them long before they reach it. Number 11. A Bridge Too Far, 1977. A Bridge Too Far is one of the rare war films that builds itself like a victory and then slowly reveals itself as a failure. Operation Market Garden was designed to end the war quickly. Instead, it became a lesson in overconfidence and miscalculation. The film does not hide that truth. It leans into it. From the beginning, everything looks precise. Plans are laid out. Commanders speak with certainty. Troops move with purpose. But as the operation unfolds, cracks begin to appear. Communication breaks down. Intelligence proves unreliable. Units become isolated. The film captures the terrifying moment when a perfect plan begins to collapse in real time. What makes it so difficult to watch today is the refusal to dramatize heroism. Soldiers are brave, but bravery does not change the outcome. The film shows confusion, panic, and the slow realization that the mission cannot succeed. There are moments of courage, but they are swallowed by a larger sense of inevitability. The scale is enormous, but the emotion is intimate. You see men waiting for orders that never come, fighting battles they cannot win, surviving situations that should have been avoided. By the end, victory feels irrelevant. What remains is loss and the quiet understanding that ambition can be as dangerous as the enemy. Number 10. The Cruel Sea, 1953. War at sea is not fast. It is not loud in the way modern films portray it. It is slow, tense, and filled with impossible decisions. This film captures that reality with disturbing clarity. Set during the Battle of the Atlantic, it follows a Royal Navy crew as they hunt submarines across an endless hostile ocean. The title is not poetic, it is literal. The sea is cruel because it does not care. When ships sink, men are left in freezing water with no guarantee of rescue. One of the most haunting moments comes when a commander must choose between saving survivors and continuing the mission. He makes the decision that war demands, and it destroys him. That is what makes this film so powerful. The enemy is not just the submarine, it is the moral weight of command. Every choice carries consequences that cannot be undone. The film does not offer comfort. It presents duty as something that can break a person from the inside. Modern audiences often expect resolution or redemption. This film offers neither. It leaves you with the understanding that survival in war sometimes comes at a cost that never fades. Number 9. Went the Day Well, 1942. A quiet English village, friendly faces, a sense of calm that suggests safety. Then the illusion collapses. The soldiers who arrive are not allies. They are enemy infiltrators. And what follows is one of the most shocking portrayals of violence ever seen in a British war film of its time. There is no build-up toward spectacle. The horror arrives suddenly and without warning. As civilians are forced into impossible decisions. Ordinary people become part of a brutal struggle that strips away innocence. The film does not protect its characters. It shows how quickly fear can turn into desperation and how survival can demand actions that feel unthinkable. What makes it so disturbing for modern audiences is its tone. It refuses to soften the reality. Violence is direct and often quiet. There are no dramatic speeches to justify what happens. Only the cold understanding that war can reach anywhere, even places that seem untouched. The film also explores betrayal in a deeply unsettling way. Trust becomes dangerous. Every interaction carries tension. The idea that the enemy could already be inside creates a sense of paranoia that never fades. By the end, the village is no longer a symbol of safety. It becomes a reminder that war does not respect boundaries. This is not a comforting story about resistance. It is a warning about vulnerability, and that is what makes it endure. Number 8. Tunes of Glory, 1960. Tunes of Glory is a war film without a battlefield, yet it feels like one of the most intense conflicts ever put on screen. The setting is a Scottish regiment after the war has ended. The enemy is gone, but the damage remains. What follows is a psychological duel between two officers whose leadership styles clash in ways that feel quietly destructive. One represents tradition and emotional connection. The other represents discipline and control. Neither is entirely right and neither is entirely wrong, but the tension between them slowly poisons the environment around them. The men under their command become caught in a conflict that has no clear rules and no clear outcome. What makes this film so difficult to watch is its honesty about trauma. War does not end when the fighting stops. It lingers in behavior and pride, in insecurity. The characters are not villains. They are wounded in ways they cannot fully understand, and that makes their actions feel painfully real. The performances are intense and deeply human. Every conversation feels like a battle. Every decision carries emotional weight. The film builds toward a conclusion that feels inevitable yet devastating. There is no victory here, only consequences. Modern audiences often look for closure. This film denies it. It shows that some wars continue long after the guns fall silent, and those are often the hardest to face. Number 7. The Battle of the River Plate, 1956. This film approaches war with a level of precision that feels almost documentary in nature. It tells the story of a naval engagement between British forces and a German battleship. There are no exaggerated heroics, no unnecessary drama. Instead, the film focuses on strategy timing and the reality of combat at sea. What makes it stand out is its commitment to authenticity. Real ships are used, real tactics are followed. The film takes its time to explain the decisions being made. This creates a different kind of tension, one that comes from understanding how fragile the situation really is. A single mistake could change everything. The battle itself is not chaotic in the way modern audiences might expect. It is controlled, measured, and deeply tense. And every movement matters. Every shot fired carries weight. The film shows how warfare at sea is a game of patience and precision rather than spectacle. But beneath that control is a constant awareness of danger. Ships take damage, lives are lost, and there is no guarantee of survival. The film does not celebrate victory. It presents it as the result of careful decisions and unavoidable sacrifice. What makes this difficult for modern viewers is its refusal to simplify war. There are no clear emotional cues, no exaggerated drama to guide the audience. Instead, it demands attention and respect for the reality it portrays. It reminds us that war is not always loud and chaotic. Sometimes it is quiet, calculated, and just as deadly. Number 6. Oh, What a Lovely War, 1969. At first glance, this looks like a musical, bright colors, and songs, stage performances that feel almost playful. That illusion does not last. Beneath the theatrical surface lies one of the most devastating portrayals of World War I ever created. The film uses satire as a weapon, and every cheerful moment hides something deeply disturbing. The songs are not there to entertain. They are there to expose. Lyrics that once sounded patriotic are recontextualized to reveal the absurdity of the war. Generals make decisions from a distance while soldiers march toward death. Numbers rise on screen, showing casualties climbing with each passing moment. It becomes impossible to ignore the scale of loss. What makes this film so difficult for modern audiences is the contrast. The tone shifts between light and horrific without warning. One moment feels almost playful. The next reminds you that thousands are dying for reasons that feel increasingly meaningless. That emotional whiplash is intentional. It forces the viewer to confront how war was once presented versus what it truly was. There is no single protagonist. Instead, the film presents war as a system that consumes everyone involved. Soldiers become statistics, leaders become detached, and the audience is left to process the gap between perception and reality. By the end, the spectacle fades, and what remains is a quiet, haunting image of loss. The film does not ask for applause, it asks for reflection. That is why it still feels so powerful. It reveals that sometimes the most honest way to show horror is to disguise it and then slowly strip that disguise away. Number 5. Henry V, 1944. This film begins like a performance. Oh, a stage, an audience, a sense of tradition and pride. It feels distant from reality, almost like a story being told to inspire. But as it progresses, something changes. The theatrical world gives way to something far more grounded and unsettling. The Battle of Agincourt is where that shift becomes undeniable. The mud, the exhaustion, the chaos. Soldiers struggle not just against the enemy, but against the environment itself. The film moves away from romantic language and into something physical and immediate. You feel the weight of armor, the strain of movement, the fear that comes with close combat. What makes this transformation so striking is how unexpected it feels. The film begins by celebrating heroism and ends by questioning it. Victory does not erase the suffering, it simply frames it differently. Yet the cost remains visible even in triumph. The performance of leadership is also explored in a subtle way. The king inspires his men, yet he is not untouched by what happens. There is a sense that authority carries its own burden. Decisions lead to consequences that cannot be ignored. Modern audiences often expect consistency in tone. This film challenges that expectation. It evolves. It shifts from idealism to realism in a way that feels deliberate and meaningful. That journey makes it more than a historical drama. It becomes a reflection on how war is remembered versus how it is experienced. In the end, it leaves you with a question rather than an answer. What does victory truly mean when the cost is so clearly visible? Number 4. Dunkirk, 1958. This version of Dunkirk does not chase spectacle. It focuses on confusion, retreat, and survival. The evacuation is not presented as a clean operation. It is chaotic, uncertain, and filled with moments that feel dangerously close to failure. Soldiers wait on beaches with no clear understanding of what will happen next. The film splits its perspective between those trapped on land and those attempting to rescue them. This creates a constant tension. Each side depends on the other, yet neither has control over the situation. The sea becomes both a pathway and a threat. Planes attack without warning, ships sink quickly. Time feels stretched and unpredictable. What makes this film so difficult for modern audiences is its restraint. There are no exaggerated action sequences, no heroic speeches designed to inspire. Instead, there is a focus on endurance, on waiting, all on the quiet fear that builds when survival is uncertain. The characters are not defined by grand arcs. They are defined by moments, a decision to help, a moment of hesitation, a glance that reveals fear. These small details create a sense of realism that feels almost uncomfortable. It does not allow the audience to distance themselves from what is happening. The evacuation itself is not framed as a victory in the traditional sense. It is a necessity, a desperate attempt to preserve lives. That distinction matters. It removes the illusion of control and replaces it with vulnerability. By the end, there is relief, but it is not complete. The experience leaves a mark. The film reminds us that survival can feel like success, yet still carry the weight of everything that was lost along the way. Number 3. Kajaki, 2014. This is one of the most physically and psychologically exhausting war films ever made. There are no sweeping battles, no shifting front lines, just a group of British soldiers stationed near the Kajaki Dam in Afghanistan. What begins as routine patrol turns into a nightmare that feels almost impossible to escape. One step in the wrong place changes everything. A soldier triggers a landmine, then another, and another. Suddenly, movement itself becomes deadly. The film traps you inside that moment. Every inch of ground is a threat. Every attempt to help risks another explosion. The camera stays close. It does not cut away. It forces you to sit inside the panic as it unfolds in real time. What makes this film unbearable for modern audiences is its commitment to authenticity. There is no dramatic exaggeration. Injuries are shown with brutal honesty. Pain is not stylized. It is raw, immediate, and relentless. The soldiers are not fearless heroes. They are human beings trying to hold themselves together while everything falls apart around them. Communication becomes strained. Rescue feels distant. Time stretches in a way that feels almost cruel. The heat, the dust, the fear all combine into something suffocating. The film does not offer relief through pacing. It slows down the experience, making every second feel heavier than the last. What remains most disturbing is the emotional toll. The bond between the soldiers becomes both a strength and a source of anguish. Helping a friend could mean losing another life. That impossible tension defines the entire film. And by the end, survival feels less like victory and more like endurance. It leaves you with a quiet understanding. War does not always come in waves of action. Sometimes it traps you in a single moment that never seems to end. Number 2, Threads, 1984. This is not just a war film. It is a warning. It strips away every layer of comfort and replaces it with something terrifyingly plausible. Set in Sheffield, the film begins with ordinary life. Families talk about the future, couples plan their lives, everything feels stable. Then tension rises quietly. News reports grow more serious. The world begins to shift. When the attack comes, it is sudden and overwhelming. There is no heroic response, no organized defense, only chaos. Buildings collapse, fire spreads. People are left to navigate a reality that no longer makes sense. The film does not linger on spectacle. It moves quickly into the aftermath, because that is where the true horror begins. What makes this film almost unbearable for modern audiences is its realism. It presents nuclear war not as a moment, but as a process. Society breaks down piece by piece. Infrastructure fails, food becomes scarce, authority disappears. The film follows survivors as they attempt to rebuild something resembling normal life. But normal no longer exists. Time passes and conditions worsen. Generations grow up in a world that has been permanently altered. Education disappears, language changes, hope becomes something distant and fragile. The film refuses to offer comfort. It shows consequences that stretch far beyond the initial event. There is no resolution, no recovery, only decline. That is what makes it so powerful and so difficult to watch. It does not allow the audience to escape into fiction. It feels like a possibility that could still exist. By the end, the message is clear and deeply unsettling. Some wars cannot be won. They can only be survived. And even that survival comes at a cost that reshapes everything. Number 1, 71, 2014. This film throws you into chaos and never lets you find your footing again. Set during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, it follows a young British soldier who becomes separated from his unit during a riot. What begins as confusion quickly turns into a fight for survival in a city where every street feels hostile and every face could be a threat. There is no clear battlefield, no defined enemy. The danger comes from uncertainty. Civilians, militants, and even supposed allies blur together. The soldier moves through unfamiliar territory with limited information and no support. The film captures the terrifying reality of urban warfare where control is an illusion. What makes it so intense is its perspective. The audience experiences everything through the eyes of someone who does not fully understand what is happening. Decisions are made in seconds. Trust is fragile. Fear is constant. The pacing is relentless, yet never exaggerated. It feels grounded in a way that makes every moment believable. Violence is sudden and disorienting. It does not build toward dramatic peaks. It arrives without warning and leaves lasting consequences. The film avoids clear moral framing. It does not tell you who is right. It shows you how complex the situation is and how quickly it can spiral out of control. The performances are restrained yet powerful. The lead character does not deliver speeches. He reacts. He survives. That simplicity makes the experience feel immediate and real. You are not watching a hero. You are watching a person trying to make it through the night. By the end, there is no sense of victory. Only exhaustion and the realization that survival was never guaranteed. It leaves you with a lingering tension. War does not always happen in distant fields. Sometimes it unfolds in streets that look almost ordinary. And that is what makes it so unsettling. These films are not about heroes or victories. They are about survival cost and consequences. If even one of these stories stays with you, then this journey was worth it. Let me know which film affected you the most and why. And if you want more deep dives like this, stay connected.